No one told me it would be so exhausting to keep trying to improve and still feel like nothing changes. I used to wake up every day with silent promises. Today will be different. But by the end of the night, the frustration came back, like I was stuck spinning inside the same version of myself. The truth is, I didn't need more motivation. What I needed was structure, direction, and a real plan to break away from who I was and build who I wanted to be. That's when I decided, in 90 days, I will be unrecognizable. Not just in what I wear or earn, but in how I think, what I allow, what I support. And it wasn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It was about starting with what I had, but acting like someone who had already decided never to look back. What you'll see here aren't just pretty steps for a notebook. These are decisions I actually made, habits that broke patterns, internal shifts that brought real money, real peace, and a new identity. If this resonates with you, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and come with me on this 90-day journey that changes how you see yourself and how the world responds to you. Step 1. Break the version that survives to build the one that thrives. I started this process feeling exhausted, not just physically. It was a silent emotional fatigue from always trying to keep it together. I worked, handled things, gave my all, and still felt like it wasn't enough. Like I was constantly putting out fires. Like I was stuck in survival mode. It wasn't until I stopped and looked with brutal honesty that I understood. I had adapted so much to hardships that I started to identify with them. Being strong became an obligation. Living on the edge became the norm. And asking for less became a sign of maturity. But that version of me wasn't my final identity. It was just armor. And armor that protects too much also imprisons. So I made the most liberating move. I chose to break the version that only survives. And rebuild one that thrives. One that's not proud of how much it endures, but of what it builds with intention. I started with simple decisions. I stopped settling for the bare minimum. I started choosing what elevates me. I began to walk with more presence. It wasn't easy, but it's what saved me from going in circles. Today, that surviving version no longer runs my life. It taught me a lot, but I had to let it go to discover who I can truly become. Comment. I refuse to live on autopilot. If you've also realized that freedom starts with the courage to let go of who you've outgrown. Step 2. I reprogrammed my mind to think like a rich woman before I had the money. Before any real financial change, I had to change the way I thought. Because as much as I wanted a prosperous life, my thinking was still rooted in scarcity. Every decision came with fear. Every new possibility was sabotaged by my mind repeating, "This isn't for you. It's too expensive. You're going to fail." It wasn't until I realized that poverty wasn't just outside, it was deeply rooted inside, that I understood. There's no wealthy bank account supported by a poor mindset, and I couldn't wait for the money to arrive to start behaving differently. The new version starts in your mind, not your wallet. So I re-educated my thoughts. I replaced "I can't" with "how can I?" I swapped guilt for responsibility. I traded comparison for focus. And more, I started acting like the woman I wanted to become. I woke up with intention, made conscious decisions, and treated my money with respect, even when I had very little. A wealthy mindset isn't about luxury. It's about internal structure. It's about knowing you deserve, you know how to lead. Today, my money has grown, but it was my mindset that opened the doors, long before the money showed up. Comment. My mind is already rich if you also understand that thinking like a builder is what allows you to move forward. Step 3. I redefined my routine to support my new identity. I used to start my days on autopilot, woke up late, grabbed my phone, answered messages without purpose, and started rushing before even taking a deep breath. And still, by the end of the day, I felt like I had done nothing for myself. I was just reacting, living to fix things, not to build something. When I decided to become unrecognizable, I realized it wasn't enough to change what I thought. I had to change what I did, every day. And that starts with routine. Redefining my days was like repositioning my energy. I stopped fitting into other people's schedules and started prioritizing my own goals. I set sacred times to learn, to organize my finances, to move my body, to think clearly. The new identity needed a new daily life, and that requires discipline, but a gentle discipline, one that's born from purpose, not obligation. In the first days, my body resisted. The old version still craved comfort, but I reminded myself, if I want new results, I need new actions. Today, my routine anchors me. It reminds me every day who I'm becoming. And it's not about having time. It's about having intention. Comment. My routine supports who I'm becoming. If you also understand that the rich woman you want to be must be fed daily, with real habits. Step 4. I learned to shield my energy from everything that pulled me back into scarcity. At the start of my transformation, I felt strong in the morning and drained by the end of the day. I was clear on my goals, made affirmations, planned, but all it took was a negative conversation, a comparison on social media, or emotional pressure disguised as advice, and there I was, doubting myself all over again. That's when I understood something crucial. I needed to protect my energy with the same seriousness I protected my bank password, because my energy is my most valuable asset. It fuels my decisions. Without it, I'd fall back into autopilot and end up in the same place. So I started making choices. I stopped watching things that made me feel inadequate. I respectfully distanced myself from draining conversations. I limited access to people who only showed up to question, criticize, or diminish. And more than avoiding what drains me, I fed myself with what strengthens me. Content, habits, silence, exercise, people. Everything went through a filter. Does this lift me up or wear me down? It wasn't about isolating myself. It was about protecting my process. Today, I no longer allow just anything to access the woman I'm building, because I know how valuable she is. Comment. My energy is a priority. If you also understand that you can't grow surrounded by voices that only pull you backward. Step 5. I transformed my relationship with money. It stopped being tension and became direction. For years, talking about money gave me anxiety. It felt like every financial topic came with a weight, a reminder that I wasn't where I wanted to be yet. I would put off simple decisions, like organizing my expenses or opening an investment account, because even thinking about it made me feel guilty. Until I realized I was giving money a power it didn't have, as if it were a judge, an enemy, an emotional debt. But money doesn't feel anything. I do. And if I wanted to transform it, I had to start with how I saw it. So I decided to stop running. I calmly opened my statements. I observed patterns with honesty. And most importantly, I started using money as a direction, not as an excuse. With every choice, I asked myself, does this bring me closer to or farther from the life I want? Is this aligned with the woman I'm becoming? Over time, I stopped spending to relieve tension. I started using money to fund decisions. It stopped being something that controlled me and became something I lead. Today, I respect what comes in, honor what goes out, and build with intention. Comment, my money is direction, not tension. If you also understand that your financial freedom begins when you change your relationship with what you already have. Step 6. I committed to stop negotiating with my old self. At the start of my transformation, the biggest resistance didn't come from the outside world. It came from within. That part of me that knew well the comfort of postponing, doubting, going back to the familiar, even if that familiar was painful. It was like my old self sat beside me every time I tried to do something different. What's the point of all this? You've tried before and it didn't work. Relax, no one's watching anyway. And even though I knew it was self-sabotage, sometimes I still gave in. Until one day, I understood. Every time I negotiate with my old self, I delay the woman I want to become. That's when I made a silent pact with myself. It didn't matter if it was hard. It didn't matter if no one understood. I would no longer explain myself to the version of me that only knew how to survive, nor seek approval from those who don't share my vision. I stopped reopening internal conversations with someone I had already outgrown. And with each decision, I reminded myself, this choice belongs to who I'm becoming, not who I used to be. Over time, it got lighter. Today, my new identity speaks louder. And I keep going, no more negotiations. Comment. I no longer negotiate with my old self. If you also understand that every transformation demands firmness in the face of voices that want to keep you the same. Step 7. I created daily rituals to keep my vision alive, even when no one else could see it yet. At the beginning, it felt like I was trying for nothing, changing my habits, rethinking how I acted, organizing my money. But on the outside, nothing seemed to change. No one noticed. Nothing big happened. And then that silent question would creep in. Is this really going to lead somewhere? That's when I understood. Most of the transformation happens invisibly. And if I truly wanted to become unrecognizable, I had to protect my vision, even when no one else could see it. I began creating rituals to keep my faith alive. Simple but powerful rituals. Writing, visualizing, speaking out loud who I was becoming. Remembering, every day, why I started. It wasn't about forcing positive thinking. It was about holding on to clarity even on cloudy days. Because waiting for results to show up before believing is the slowest path there is. My discipline became an expression of self-love. And each small daily act, waking up early, saving money, studying, saying no, became a seed. And a seed, when watered, grows roots. Roots become foundation. Foundation becomes structure. Today, people are starting to notice from the outside. But what sustains me is still what I built in the invisible. Comment. I feed my vision every day. If you also understand that before it shows up in the world, your wealth needs to exist within. Step 8. I learned to surround myself with stimuli that confirm the woman I'm building. I used to think that just wanting to change was enough, that willpower alone would be sufficient to transform myself. But along the way, I realized something that hit me hard. You might be ready on the inside, but if everything around you keeps pulling you back to your old self, you'll quit halfway. That's when I made a strategic move. I started surrounding myself with stimuli that reinforced my new identity. Everything, absolutely everything, became a filter. The people I talked to, the content I consumed, the quotes I read, the way I dressed, even the wallpaper on my phone. It wasn't about pretending to live a reality I didn't yet have. It was about staying constantly connected to the version I was building. Because the world already has more than enough noise trying to make you doubt yourself. If you don't create your own internal and external environment, you'll get lost in the chaos. And the more I strengthened the space around me, the stronger I felt within. More aligned, more grounded. Today, my environment supports me. My routine confirms me. And my external reality is beginning to reflect everything I've held internally. Comment. I surround myself with the woman I want to be. If you also understand that everything around you should remind you of your new direction, not your old stagnation. Step 9. I took full responsibility for my results. No more excuses or distractions. I had a turning point in my transformation process. It was when I realized I was still blaming external things for my results. My salary, my upbringing, the hustle, the fatigue, the lack of support, the country's instability. Everything became a reason to justify what I wasn't getting done. And the more I blamed, the more stuck I felt. Until I heard a phrase that flipped my mindset. You may not be to blame for what happened to you, but you're 100% responsible for getting out of it. And that day, I looked at myself differently. I stopped waiting to be understood, rescued, or pushed forward. I stopped caring so much about what others thought. And I gave myself power, because responsibility isn't a burden. It's freedom. I started acting like the author of my own story. I committed to deadlines, real goals, and choices with consequences. If it failed, I analyzed it. If it worked, I reinforced it. But the control, even if partial, is mine. Today, I no longer need the perfect setting to move forward. I move because I understand the world won't pause to make space for me. It's up to me to place myself where I want to be. Comment. I'm 100% responsible for what I build. If you've also decided to stop negotiating with excuses and started owning your choices with maturity. Step 10. I stayed committed to my decision even on days when nothing seemed to be working. Not every day was pretty. Some days the exhaustion was louder. Some days the doubt screamed in my head. And the worst, there were days when it felt like nothing was working, despite all my effort. That's when many people quit. And I get it, because when the outside doesn't change as fast as we hope, the mind tries to convince us that maybe it's not worth it. But I learned something that saved my journey. Not every result shows up in the mirror, but every internal shift has consequences. I kept my decision, even in doubt, even in silence, even without applause, guarantees, or immediate signs of return. Because a true decision isn't dependent on the weather. It's the one you repeat out of loyalty to yourself, not convenience. And it was precisely that firmness that solidified me. Because every time I resisted the urge to give up, I grew on the inside. And internal growth always precedes any external harvest. Today, people might think I got lucky, or that things just started working out. But I know. It was a decision kept in silence. It was root before bloom. Comment. I keep my decision even when no one sees. If you also understand that consistency in the dark days is what makes you shine with truth. If someone had told me months ago that I could become unrecognizable in 90 days, I probably wouldn't have believed them. But today, looking back, I see that the most impactful change wasn't in the mirror or my bank account. It was in the way I show up in the world. How I think, how I act, how I respect myself. I didn't have to wait for a new opportunity, a better salary, or someone to rescue me. I just had to decide I no longer wanted to be a spectator in my own life. These steps aren't theory. They're practice. They're pain turned into strategy. And each one of these decisions brought me closer to the woman I chose to be. If you've made it this far, it's because something in you is already ready. Maybe you're still afraid. Maybe you still have doubts. But you already feel that you can't keep repeating the same cycle. And the good news? You don't have to change everything all at once. You just need to make your next choice with more awareness than the last. The unrecognizable woman you want to be already exists. She just needs you to stop abandoning yourself. Comment: I chose to be unrecognizable. If you've also decided to build your new identity with clarity, firmness, and responsibility. And of course, if this content empowered you, subscribe to the channel, hit like, and share it with another woman who's also ready to break the cycle and build a new version of herself.